as far north as Alaska, and the Eskimos, the Inuits, all sent soldiers, warriors to fight in Florida in what we call the Gullah Wars. This is how the French, right, under Adam Weishaupt, using the Louisiana Purchase, and they were able to then do a survey on the land, what they call Lewis and Clark's expedition. As they surveyed the land, they found all our castles empty and said, there's no royalty here. This land is abandoned. But they don't know our culture like we do, because if my soldiers is going to war, I'm standing in the army with them. I'm not sending the motherfucker to fight in anything that I'm not willing to fight in myself. Right? So once these wars begin to take place, Lewis and Clark declared the land empty because they went as far west as Washington State. Right? And the translator we know as a blackamoor by the name of Ben Bay. Ben Bay is Benjamin Banneker.
Right.
Benjamin Banneker is credited with the design of Washington, D.C., which is massive sigils that's used for conjure purpose, and we call that the city of D.C. Right?
Right.
So once they established that, they moved our capital, because our capital was originally Philadelphia. Right? Philadelphia is a city of brotherly love, but it's also the Delphi oracles was central there. So they telling us that the oracles of Delphi was from Greece. That's because Greece was a Hellenistic culture under Helen as a woman. But Rome was a Hellenistic culture, but they turned Helen into a man. This is what they call beheading a god, or when they take Medusa's head. Right? So taking Medusa's head is them switching the gods out. That's an Anunnaki war tactic. So they use changing of the names. So when Enki named his son Seth, then Enlil named his son Sethian. Right? Just so he can say that they're different people, and he can try to switch places with them in retrospect. Right? So from there, we get into the 1900s, and we get into us trying to restore our people, and we got all of these other people that's fighting for power to never let us know who he is, and that's what they call the Masonic secret. So I'm gonna stop right there for questions.
My thing was, as far as the conquistadors, we know who they were before. Who are the conquistadors now, and what do these organizations like? Is it the Greek letter organizations? Is it the Divine Nine? Like, who are these people? Are they the imposter Moors, the dirty Moors?
Okay,
or what?
Let me answer that. So, where are these people now? They look like us. They masquerade as our leadership in the community, but they always working against us. They've infiltrated every secret society, every alphabet organization. They stronghold paramilitary organization is known as the JDL, the Jewish Defense League, but everybody think that's a pale-skinned organization. Look at the symbols, right? When you look at the symbols, their symbol is the black fist. That doesn't make sense. Okay, they are working as the paramilitary branch. They the same ones you'll find in all of the celebrities' FBI files issuing death threats and extortion plots in order to take the wealth from our celebrities. So you find them in Tupac file, Biggie file, you find them in Michael Jackson file, you find them in Prince file, you find them in some of the non-melanated celebrities like, what's my man name? Robin Williams, who they said committed suicide, but that was a flat out murder. They call them star whackers in Hollywood. This is in the protection from them in Hollywood before the Nation of Islam got out there was a group that we call Scientologists. The Scientologists was diffusing the situation because they couldn't get to the wealth of the actors because of the structure of Scientology. So that's why all of the celebrities start running the L. Ron Hubbard Scientology, right? So when we started to become instrumental in movies and music in the Hollywood, then the Nation of Islam's FOI have to come in because they're the only ones who know how to defend us from this enemy. They were trained. Well, that's a military strategy. So you got the people that's protecting the Europeans in Hollywood, Scientologists, bump into these dudes that's protecting us in Hollywood called FOI. They both performing the same function for two different groups against the same enemy. The art of war say the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So it's only natural that they have to end up creating some kind of alliance because they still fighting the dirty Moors. That's why L. Ron Hubbard moved onto a boat so he wouldn't be under their jurisdiction on the land because they flipped the land jurisdiction to the water. They don't have any jurisdiction on the land. They flipped the water jurisdiction on the land. That's called admiralty law. The admiralty and maritime law is codified and controlled by the Uniform Commercial Code. The Uniform Commercial Code is what they call the International Law of Nations. The International Law of Nations governs international corporate jurisdictional law. So when you become a national, you become a straw man in your nation. As a straw man, you are a dead entity, a legal fiction. You don't really exist. So therefore, whatever they do to you is only a fiction and they can't suffer a consequence. It's not true. They doing this to you because you allowing them to do it to you because you don't know what they doing. That's an adhesion contract that they have you under that you don't know you signing. When they say nationality is the order of the day, it expired July the 4th, 2019. Because using the nationality system under Noble Drew Ali's original format, you was able to navigate and live your life without ever being affected by these people being on the land. But when we start fighting to be part of their system, we abandon our system. We abandon Elijah Muhammad. We abandon Noble Drew Ali. We abandoned Marcus Garvey. We abandoned Booker T. Washington. We abandoned W.E.B. Du Bois. How are we going to get out of this condition? Right? So what we end up doing was all of the chiefs just put their part in the public domain until one of us can figure out how to put all of the pieces of the puzzle together so that we can exile the imposters. In New Jersey, they are known as the Moorish Zionists, and they are called blackamoors by the Moorish title. They look like us, but they not us. If you look up the picture of Noble Drew Ali in Chicago in front of the temple, then you look up the picture of them in front of their temple, they are mimicking, but they're giving signs in the pictures. But nobody knows how to read the signs because everybody is caught in the dogma that they can't get to the science part. This is why C. Freeman Ill's information is critical to the understanding of more science, because he teaches you how to read the symbols. And you go back to the Q drop and it said, what's going to be their undoing? The symbols. The symbols is going to expose them, right? Which takes us to the flag. Well, the flag that they flying in the Moorish Science Temple today with the 5-point star has been a Moorish Science Temple flag longer than it's been a Moroccan state flag. Make that shit make sense. They copying Moorish science and Noble Drew Ali in order to perpetuate their dogmatic pursuits and oppression. We not buying it, we done with it, and it don't work no more. So the women's consulate of Moors have been keeping the secret among themselves as to how Noble Drew Ali got infiltrated, because don't nobody want to tell the story about the muftis. The muftis that gave him up to Rome, as they call it. Of course they did. They was fucking Romans. They was Etruscan Moors. Before they was called Moors, when they went into Europe after they got kicked out of Africa, they was called Etruscans. When they invaded from in the Iberian Peninsula of Europe, when they came in from the southeast, they came in as the Byzantine kings of the Ottoman Empire. This is where we get the term Els, Bays, and Days in the Moorish Science Temple, because you tagging the motherfuckers doing the dirt. Right? So now we get to George Washington and the 200-year challenge in order to develop a ceasefire. The ceasefire was a settlement that was written up as the Paris Accord. We know it today as the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. It wasn't even signed on this land, so therefore any enforcement on this land is in a direct contradiction to the law of the land, which goes back to the native woman who put the Pope on notice, and she had to tell him that the chiefs are now active on the land and that these motherfuckers is running out of time, they got to go, right? And all of the time they've been telling us that white supremacy was about your skin color. It was about being a free white person in law. When you look it up in Black Law Dictionary under free white person in law, clear as day it say Moors. Clear as day. So the whole thing was a chess game between adepts. The ones who were here were on defense, so they take up the banner or the moniker of black.
Question. So what do you think of us, because we call ourselves American Indians?
Indian is not our term. It's the same as the Moor. They thrusted names on us, like I explained to the sister about Seminole. When we say they talking about Seminole Wars, they telling it from the Europeans' perspective, from the conquistadors, the French and the English that we fought. But when you say Gullah Wars, you telling it from our people's history, perspective, and angle, and we don't tell the same story exactly the same. Their story is that we was runaway slaves and we congregated with the natives made the strong fighting force in Florida. Our position in the Gullah Wars is we ain't slaves, we ain't finna be your slave, and we'll fight your motherfucking ass until the end of the earth. So this is the difference in how the stories is being told between our elders and the people that came. The people that came want to hold on to the narrative and make us assume the position as a national free white person in law, because that's the big I concept of the Etruscan doctrine. Okay. We don't believe in that.
So, well, we go by nations. So, does it still say we're not who we are when we say that we Blackfoot, we're Saponi, Calabar, Choctaw?
When you use those tribal designations like that, Choctaw, the Dungdamounja, Washita, Cherokee is also a term that they thrust up on us. Right? It's not the original name. The name Cherokee was specifically created to produce some people that we call reservation invaders, $5 Indians. This is who they was making their contracts with under the pretense that they was making the contracts with us. But when you go to all our elders, they say we never signed treaties with their people. Our people never signed treaties with them. So who in the fuck is this signing the treaties? It's the servants they brought because they fought wars against the Mongols and the Huns. Look at the people when it testify of itself. They fought wars with the Mongols, the Huns, and what we call as the Aryans or Arya-Vedic peoples, what we call Hindus. These people became the servants of the Moors in Europe. As prisoners of war, they became part of the bounty that they won. And these were their servants, or as they call them, they pets. And Mama said that nobody should be thrown away like trash. You can't make other human beings your pets. I agree. So when they was telling us the slave stories, what they was leaving out parts is that the big house is Big Mama house. Big Mama always had a big house because she always had a lot of her grandkids, great grandkids, nieces and nephews all living at the house. When they turned our family dwellings into POW camps, they rebranded them as plantations. They stopped calling us so-called Indians and started calling us Negroes, blacks, and coloreds. But none of those things was actually us. None of this shit in English would have had anything to do with us if we'd have held on to our original languages. But what do? They start murdering us for teaching our children the original tongues. But when you go back off in New Orleans, up in the woods, they still have tribes that speak the original language. Same with Mississippi, backwoods Mississippi. You'll be talking to somebody and they just sound like a good old country boy. Then another country boy get up and it'll sound like they talking Japanese.
You're absolutely right, because I'm from Louisiana.
And I'm like, what the hell is these niggas talking about? I ain't never heard this shit before. They talk in the native tongue that predates the settlers. So our original tradition is the only way to get these people out of here, and that's an oral tradition. When they tell you to fill the paperwork, the paper is the paper chain. The paper chain ties you to a straw man status as a national. We in order for us to not need nationality, we have to rise above nations. Nations are corporate entities created to farm humans. I can't say it no other way. It's a slave system.
And those who clans, they were called clans. They were like, we were clans.
Yeah. So the Europeans' word, first of all, European language was originally a Twa language from the Twa peoples that came as the Orisha that be rebranded as Irish. And the Irish or the Orisha formed two distinct clans. One of them was called Scots, named after Scotta, and the other one was called Irish, named after Orisha, right? The Twa people that settled in the islands. The ones that we call more stronghold is in Switzerland globally. That's why Switzerland is immune to the wars. They infiltrated Switzerland when the last Swiss war, when they fought the French. So all they was doing was staging a war so they could do a mass evacuation and set up a banking system for control in Switzerland.
What about Absalom Jones? I heard you mention him. Was he a dirty?
No. Absalom Jones and Prince Hall was the first of the chiefs on the land that discovered what was being done was they was using our rites of passage against us and weaponized it in the lodges by blocking us out of the institution so we can never develop mentally and psychologically and spiritually enough to know who we are. It was basically the denying us of the knowledge itself, and they was the first, well, two of the first ones on record that actually tried to bring the secrets out of the lodges. And they responsible for these college fraternities as the byproduct of Prince Hall Masons hijacking the system of academia.
Let's go back to the book. I got you. Find another book.
We're going back right here. We was on this one. I think we was on this one.
I think that's the one we was on. The one you at now.
Okay, let's go to the next one, right?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
The Forgotten Slave Trade. The white European slaves of Islam. We don't want to talk about that though, do we?
Go ahead.
We just only want to talk about niggas with slaves and white people came out the caves, conquered the gods, and put them in chains. Make that shit make sense, Alder. What they talking about?
Right.
If we start watching the long game, this is what we gonna find out. These motherfuckers came over here as slaves. Right? And then they start using them to block us out of the institutions. That's how they shifted their position in the society. Once they shift their position in the overall society, now they standing in the background. Anybody give them any problems, they murder that nigga.
Wow.
Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey, Gabriel Prosser. And the list goes on and on of the ones you don't even know put up a resistance. They don't tell a lot about the slave rebellions or the insurrections in the prison camps because they don't want that to be part of the culture. Us constantly waking up and uprising against the tyranny of artificial legal fiction that's operating in a de facto capacity, pretending to be our government, pretending to give a fuck about us, but all the time they economically raping us, they socially destroying us, and they literally are taking the future and from our kids by corrupting what our kids learn. What our children learn from the master keeps them in a perpetual servant mentality. Right? Let's go to the next one. See, all of these is they references so they can learn more about what really went on with the slave trade.
Get a real grasp of it. Get a real good part of the picture.
This is what the CSA, where thousands of Irish people sold as slaves. The answer is yeah, because the Irish was fighting the English, and the English don't look like they look today. They look like light-skinned Negroes.